All righty, so a big ticket item that I think we have all been anticipating.
Grab your popcorn.
Yes, everyone grab their popcorn, tissues, pitchforks. All right, so AI in Node.
Yes or no? End of question.
Yeah, no. So I think this will be quite a journey of a session. But before we get too deep into it, well, yeah. So what I'm hoping to get in cover here is code of conduct, some background information, do a little bit of a workshop, see where we can get with it, and stretch goals, compromises. We'll see how much of a stretch that is, and possibly paths forward. Quick reminder, this is a very hot topic. Some of this discussion has already happened. Some parts of it were not so nice. Let's try to be nice. Let's try to avoid some like whipping boys, scapegoats, straw men, stuff like that. So some background on things that have happened related to this topic. We have from the OpenJS Foundation guidance. They have also like very thoroughly vetted the legal side of this. From a legal perspective, it's okay. And the general guidance from the OpenJS Foundation is in favor of AI use. Each project within that gets to make their own decision, but the foundation itself is like,
sorry,
go ahead.
One thing to note, it's okay if driven by a human being.
Pardon?
It's okay if driven by a human being.
Ah, okay, yes.
Like, sorry to be clear, like it's missing a word in the
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, OpenClaw is definitely not welcome. Okay, to be clear, nobody is. No, I don't know. Somebody sent me 500 and something comments and pull requests on my on Fastify and Pin organizations. So this was not fun. Okay, like that is not fun. Okay, to be clear. So yes. Also, it's okay from a legal perspective if driven by a human being, okay? Like this is, if it's just a bot doing things on its own, that is a much bigger copyright and legal problem. A bot cannot sign the DCO. A bot cannot give, it has no copyright to give.
It's enough just to say fix this.
You need to, that is the...
It's okay, but if you check the whole code after and you are
yes, and you know that what is the thing is doing. It's typically in the experience of somebody that has done this multiple times. It's never like that. Never works. It's like yeah.
So just to clarify, driven by a human means a human agrees to the DCO.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It also means a human read the code.
Yes.
Which is necessary for the DCO.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah, a human read the code. Yes, that is. I just wanted to clarify this because otherwise, it's I don't know. Some of the room might not be aware, so I'm just stating. Nobody here is promoting. I think bot-driven OpenClaw style.
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding. Yes, vibe coding. Yeah, no, that's not in the room. Okay.
I'll say more AI assisted development.
Yeah.
Instead of vibe coding.
Yeah.
And obviously you are responsible of the things that you're sending.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. In general, for the ecosystem, this is the policy this is kind of like the history of it and the policy that the Linux kernel has gone through. I'm calling them out specifically. They are part of our friends and family, kind of the keystone of the Linux Foundation. Human accountability is not negotiable. Use of LLMs doesn't change who is responsible for submitted code. Purely machine generated code without human involvement, not welcome. Maintainers retain authority to accept or reject AI-generated contributions at their discretion. Tools should be disclosed, assisted by commit tag, and they have found that AI reviews work very well. In the ecosystem, the other ecosystems, in terms of who is embracing this, who's not, of the stuff that I found for major projects, about 49-ish of them have made a decision to accept. 20 have made the decision to reject, and 5 are kind of somewhere in the middle. So a bit of a mixed bag. In Node, our current moderation policy already bans the use of LLMs by non-collaborators. Here's the citation from the moderation policy. Contributing NPR guidelines require commits to have human sign-off. Here's the citation of that. And we have 2 major proposals on how to handle this. There are those links if you want to read those discussions. I have read through all of the comments and things from both of them and have used that to seed the next exercise. So I think I captured everything. If I didn't, I'm sorry, I wasn't ignoring you. I did filter things to keep them objective. And I removed anything that I couldn't find anything to substantiate them. So if you notice those things are missing, they are missing on purpose. If you can find something to substantiate a claim that I couldn't, then please do include it. So I think a good way to get this started is to do a post-it note exercise, similar to what Robin had done in Dublin. I forget what it was. It worked out really well, so I'm going to steal her idea. We have another retro board here, and I will post the link to it. Oh God, Zoom, I hate you so much. In the collaborator. I'm sorry, in the Collab Summit chat. And it looks like this. So I've grouped them into thoughts, concerns, cons, reasons to not do it, concerns and thoughts, general things, and pros, reasons to do it. There is another column that's currently hidden. We'll get to that later. So I think we should spend maybe about 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes for people to look through these and give you guys a chance to add anything that is not already here. The things that are pinned at the top are relevant information that came out of the recent collaborator survey. So these things are broadly representing the thoughts and opinions from collaborators. So it is currently, we'll call it 4:10. So let's go till 4:15. I'll check back in. If people need more time, then we'll extend that to 4:20. And then we'll pick back up and like deduplicate, curate, and go over those things. And please bring your boxing gloves.
the most difficult part.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm still seeing things coming in, so let's give it the other 5 minutes.
boy.
All right, so we are at 4:20 time. I see we have a lot of stuff. Okay, so I'm seeing quite a few upvotes on the use of it by collaborators, but maybe we start with some of the stuff on the left here. So there are the ethical problems. I think no one has really voiced. Oh, yes, ethical, sorry. Not ethical, ethical. I haven't seen anybody voicing any kind of like disagreements with those sorts of things. Is there anyone in the room that does wish to voice them? Otherwise, I think we would say they exist, and then we kind of have to decide whether we just ignore them. Because I don't know how else, or maybe incorporate that into if we do end up going for some type of AI allowing policy, perhaps we incorporate that into which ones. We also have a kind of a knowledge problem, and if we want to take a stance on that, we have the level of effort and what that means. So as this says, if it takes a lot of time to write code, to like write good code, and now that is kind of gone. So it's very easy for someone to just like throw something over at us. And so we kind of lose that investment from them. Okay, sure. I'm seeing some stuff about the legal stuff being not entirely settled. I don't have any particular knowledge on this, maybe Matteo or Robin or Giuseppe, you would have more information on that. There are some comments about the legal opinion, or sorry, the legal matter being not entirely settled.
It's wrong.
Huh?
It's wrong. We've had lots of lawyers, outside counsel.
I don't think that's what it says, though.
Like Robin,
Not settled.
the thing is, they disagree with the opinion of our lawyers.
They disagree with the opinion of the lawyers.
Yes,
Oh, well,
Okay, so
that's the point. That's the
it's
point.
saying
That's
it's
the point.
unsettled.
well, as
Okay.
since the project was donated to the foundation and the legal team sets the legal policy and the board sets the legal, reaffirms the legal policy.
So this
I
seems,
would say that it's not only disagreement with the lawyers, it's a view that the matter hasn't been completely settled in courts, that in terms of court findings, judicial findings, whether it's been settled there or not is part of the question as well.
Right,
Yeah.
and we could bike shed by country, by all kinds of things. Again,
To be clear, I wrote this one and that is what I was going for.
okay. All right, so it sounds like this is like highlighting a maybe problem. Is that accurate?
Sorry?
I think this is highlighting a maybe problem.
Sure.
Okay,
It's also, and to Robin's point, it's a it's US case law, there's international case law, like what applies here,
yeah.
what applies here, because it's a US foundation, it's US case law that matters.
Mhm.
So I don't think the Linux Foundation will just, gamble on the future of the Linux kernel. So I guess there is already some, certain to be used properly.
Kubernetes
The-
and PyTorch are all-
Exactly, also Kubernetes. So I think we have some ground there.
Okay,
I think the point that this is making is not that it's like I'm sure the lawyers are correct in their opinion but it's an opinion is the point. It's not like case law is what matters in this type of thing, and there isn't any yet. And so that's what it's not saying that like the LF doesn't have an opinion and that opinion is like perceived as valid from those lawyers. I'm sure they're correct and they're good at their jobs. I hope. But more that it's not like an objective position.
I'm seeing from James that how the lawyers arrived at that decision. We haven't seen any of that. Is that information that is possible to surface, or do we not do that, or?
I would just say, I think we've outlined it, that it's legal. They haven't gone through all the dissertations. I think if you have the US courts that have deemed it not being copyrightable. Yeah, I mean, the US courts have deemed it's not copyrightable. I know previously they are saying that, actually, we're not even talking copyright, it's the right to submit for a DCO in the Node project's case. So, yeah, and they've evaluated the Linux kernel uses a DCO as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, in the US specifically, so I can actually kind of address both of your points a bit. The lack of case law thing is not 100% accurate. There's not exactly directly with that, but there is, it is so far being declared as a clean room, which there's IBM case from back in the day. People copied the BIOS by basically describing it in a spec, like have one person describe it as a spec and then hand the spec to someone else and have them build it, which is mechanically the same thing that happens with an AI, is that a different person trains the AI than the person that asks it to build something. So that part of it is considered clean room. It loses its license in the process, but then it coming out of an AI, it doesn't gain a license because a human didn't write it and
Yeah, I think Ryan Romer did a really great
Yeah.
session on it at JSConf, if you want more details. Also, it's an opinion, but it's now an official policy from the board and our outside counsel. So it is a policy. It's not an opinion, it's a policy. So at least at our foundation.
Some of the other things are about the use of LLMs being antithetical to the mission of the project and sort of kind of an open collaboration. Like I think the spirit of this is the intention of collaboration to like talk to a robot. And I think where this person is probably coming from is that it's meant to be like facilitating kind of human interaction. Okay, so yeah, I don't see any or much dissent from on the con side of things of people saying that these are not concerns or like not legit. So I think we can then take them as well, except maybe the legal one. Take those as like kind of accepted cons, and then we decide either to incorporate them into a potential proposal or solution, or we say that we accept that those are bad things and we don't care. Okay, so concerns and thoughts. AI used by collaborators is fine. AI used by non-collaborators is not fine. I think we probably all agree, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not collaborators who are producing the AI slop that we are inundated with. And yes. Yeah, so this is kind of a concern of making it an us versus them kind of thing. So like, do as I say, not as I do. A potential concern of having some policy, if we did, where we say collaborators are allowed to use this, non-collaborators are not allowed to use this, possibly hypocritical.
I would say there's another dimension to that as well. If a non-collaborator opens a PR that fixes a legitimate bug in the correct way, and it was AI generated, are we going to turn that away?
Indeed, that's a good question.
I think the current moderation policy says that yes, we will.
So then are we just going to like have an existing contributor just copy that line for line and open another PR? Okay.
That's a different topic. Okay.
That is like when I think good contributions are okay, like for me are okay anyway, but there is an amount of like the major problem for me is when somebody, like a lot of those AI gen PRs have been open and then the person doing it completely disappear because you do a review and then they are incapable of addressing the comments, the comments being done. So, and then they disappear. And this has happened many times, okay? And we need to be a little bit more brutal to some extent in even closing PRs that are like that have a change request review and nobody picking it up in a month or something, because at that point it's just dead. And we are like, people might not want to open another PR to fix the same bug or work on the same feature because there's already an open PR and don't want to step in somebody else's toes. And yeah, that is a real concern on this kind of slop.
So from my own experience on this, for instance, on Test Runner, there is some, for God knows why, there is some rather minor issue that exists, and for some reason, like basically bot accounts keep opening identical pull requests, fixing this same thing, and I keep going through and linking them as duplicates. There isn't a fix yet, so I haven't closed them. But in a single week, I think I went through like 16 literally identical, like you could copy paste them. So it's like how
that's exactly the AA's law we observed on HackerOne reports. So what we did as an attempt was to include them to the security MD. This is not vulnerability.
This is not what?
But a vulnerability because they are opening several of those. So the thing that concerns me most on this, it's fine to receive pull requests from anyone, regardless of their status on collaborator, using AI. I'm agree with that. The problem is that when they open a large pull request, which requires a long time to review, and per policy, if someone with right access to the code base accepts that pull request, it could land in 7 days. And I feel this is bad. This could be very bad, actually, because a single person could approve that pull request. This pull request could go, and due to the amount of commits we land on main every day, it's hard for the releasers to check it and remove from the release cycle. So this could be a problem, especially for large pull requests created by someone that doesn't have the trust yet to the code.
Just a heads up, Fedora's on the line and he wants to speak.
Yeah. Also, Jean, you had your hand raised. Or is that for, okay. Okay, yes, Fedora.
Hello everyone. So glad to be able to participate remotely. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of bring up an important point that maybe haven't been put on the board yet, is that I think it's indeed a great concern if such change get merged, because the way LLMs are trained and the way they produce output is that they have to produce the most plausible output. So they have to produce the output that looks most correct, and it's known that they are able to deceive people into thinking it's valid, correct, and doesn't have any issues. So I think it's a great concern for us as a Node.js core, because this code indeed could land in main, then it could get released in a week, and people could be running it and could look valid to reviewer and to contributor, but could actually be written with small issues that are just hard to detect because of the nature of the AI itself. And yeah, I think it's also worth considering. Thank you.
Just one thing. Yes.
Just
okay, sorry. Can you hear me? Give me this one. It's much easier. Just easier.
Okay. So one thing, I think we should have two different discussions here, because so far we are complaining that if we enable AI, bad thing will happen, assuming the current policies. But nobody is saying, like, for instance, Brian was saying that the current moderation policy prohibits non-contributors to send, not collaborators, to send AI-generated PR. Of course, if we say we accept AI, many of our policy will probably have to change. For instance, saying, if we see that the PR is AI generated, we mandate 2 approvers period, or no matter the 7 days period. Or if the PR is AI generated, we review and the person disappears, we consider that PR stale, and for instance, we automatically close it after 7 days. So of course, I think we should probably put less attention on what are the policies today, because that's a future discussion that we have to eventually have later and say, we gotta change them, and determine whether we want or not the AI. That's it.
Yeah, in terms of the existing policies, a smaller PR that is just a bug fix, AI generated or not, can usually land pretty quickly. It doesn't require a lot of review. From what I've seen, if we put the ethical concerns around AI or whatever, if we talk about just the practical reality of receiving a bunch of AI slop, right? it really comes down to, this is hard to review. It takes time to review. Somebody might rubber stamp it and it gets in without accurate review. So I think if we take a look at, take AI out of it and just say, if we have somebody who's sending us a bunch of slop that is just bad code, right? And somebody's rubber stamping it, that's a problem on its own, right? So instead of, like, if we took the AI part out of the question and say, how do our existing policies fall down? Large PRs, 20,000 line, PRs, or adding a new subsystem, those should not land in a week, right? It should not allow you to just say one person stamp it and then done, whether it's coming from a human or anyone else, right? So if we took our policies and said, okay, this is adding a new subsystem, this is over a certain threshold of complexity, right? Nope, it requires multiple reviews. It requires a longer period of time. It requires, just a more adequate check to at least give us the opportunity to give it the proper review, right? And if it looks like, hey, this is a new contributor and this is an incredibly complex change, there's no way that they've done this. We might push back and just say, hey, you have not established the trust necessary to actually give us this, pure AI generated thing, because we don't know if that, what this thing is actually doing. It's not about whether it's AI generated, it's whether we trust that you actually read this piece of code and understand what it's doing. At the same time though, I recognize some people just say, hey, AI is bad. Okay, great. Our policy should not say, go use it. It's, if it's used, this is what the policy is.
So one thing we need to have in mind is that the way people create code is significantly changing because of this technology. So we need to adapt on how the software is going to be created. Open source needs to evolve. So instead of just forbidding the use of the technology, what we need to do is create guidelines for collaborators and non-collaborators on how to contribute with AI, provide clear guidelines of how to PR should be, and create our own tools too, using AI to evaluate code. So we can easily have like AI slop detector for sure automatically and make it part of the flow. We can also create tools for maintainers to, save time. It's not about forbidding the technology. It's about adapting how things are changing and obviously evolve the collaborator role in the mix.
One additional. I'm not sure if Fedor.
Oh, Fedor.
Yeah, thank you. I actually found the raise hand button. It was under reactions. So sorry, I don't use Zoom daily. Anyway, I hear a lot of the sentiment that the way we write code is changing, and I think, of course, it's wrong to ignore the effects of LLM and what it's doing to our industry. But I also think that it's not exactly we don't have to take it as a presupposition that AI is changing forever the way software is written. I know that people are on different sides of the spectrum. Like some people think there's no going back, like it's going to be this forever. Some people think that maybe this is a technology that's only temporarily here, and some people are kind of in between. So yeah, I just wanted to say that we don't have to take it as granted, and I think everyone has to decide for themselves whether they feel like it is the future of software engineering, or maybe this is actually antithetical to open source software engineering, that I think. Yeah, I think I also wanted to say something else, but I forgot now. So thank you.
So one thing, I would like to reinstate what James has said. If we receive AI-generated PR, there's something we keep to forget, but I don't even know why, but we are not obligated to accept them. We can be brutal like Matteo proposed and say, no. Like James properly said, say, if I don't know who you are and you send me 20,000 lines pull request, I will not gonna accept it because there's no way I can possibly review it unless I use another AI tool, which makes no sense, which is a vicious loop basically. And we say, gain our trust, and then eventually you can try again with that subsystem. The fact that we aim for consensus seeking and we try to please everybody is actually killing the process. It's killing our project, and I've been saying this for several years. We have to be a little harsher sometimes and say, if you know, I don't know who you are, even if you're not a collaborator, you can use AI for bug fixing as baller PRs. Otherwise, I just reject it. And I would like to restate this also remembering that that's exactly the Linux kernel policy. They accept AI if they want to, otherwise they just kill it, period. On what Fedora just said, we don't know if there is gonna be a going back or not from AI. My simple opinion is that we probably don't have the, can't predict if we can afford to avoid it for now. In the next few years, we might see that, for instance, after 10 years, nothing has happened. We say, oh, no, now we can skip it. But for now, it might be harder and we must be left behind compared to other projects, for instance.
I think Jean is next. Okay.
Okay, so I was going to say pretty much something really close to what you just said, is also we are all starting the discussion on us being able to see or be aware if a pull request was open with the help of an AI or not, which we all have strong signal. Like if we say, if we watch a pull request that is 80 or 100 line in the description, there is a huge probability that it's done by AI, at least that part. But there is today no way that anyone here can guarantee 100% of the time that we are right saying this is AI or this is not AI. So, and today, people will use AI. More like 100% of the pull request or for 10% of the pull request, it will be used. So on my point, the discussion should not be, do we want to ban AI or not? Because there's no way we can ban AI. It will just be people saying, hey, I promise I'm not using an AI. The same way people were like, I didn't do a copy paste on Stack Overflow 10 years ago. So it will happen.
We all know, dude. We all know.
I think it's Raphael.
Yeah. Okay. So just one thing here is still about large pull requests. I completely agree that we could create those trust factor. But one thing important is that usually people that creates large pull requests before LLMs was people that were people that they know exactly the code base. So they are responsible for that. Now, anyone could create any feature technically on Node.js. Who will be responsible for that feature? In the end, there are features that you receive security patches, they will receive security issues. Who are going to maintain that? It will go to all the maintainers, the core collaborators, or the ones that create the feature. So I guess this is something that concerns me on that front, especially for large pull requests from someone that still are not an active collaborator. So
I think it was Matteo.
You can go in the list. If you open up in Zoom, there is like participants, and then you see the hands with a sorted order.
Yeah. I think it's Matteo or Ruben, and then Tierney.
I can pass. Let's have
okay.
So I believe we definitely cannot get around of getting PRs one way or the other that are AI generated. We have to face the reality because we don't know if code is AI generated or not. We are facing the problem that people will open PRs where they don't know to explain what they have written. And that is a big concern because yes, we are knowledgeable in many areas, and yet we make mistakes, and AI generates code that does look well. I know we approved more and landed more than just a single PR that broke us when it came, for example, to fast API changes. And this is something I have seen collaborators with all their best knowledge, improving things where they looked at the code and it looked fine. And still, it was a very small PR. You know, we are speaking about big PRs. No, we don't have to do that because even like 5 lines can already break something. So I'm really concerned about how do we detect this better? I believe that is something we have to talk about. How do we handle this? Because as I said, we don't get around the reality that we will receive PRs like that. I do believe we should speak about, like, for example, for nominations, it's an outcome. And that I would also like to discuss that people need to be able to explain any change they did to be nominated. You know, that's something that's very important for me. Because we entrust in these people the further development of something that is downloaded billions of times per year and that runs like so many servers. Questions that I don't have the answers.
I have a reply to the people will use AI anyway, even if we ban it. I think that's a little bit of a red herring because, like, sure, we say, hey, you're not allowed to use this thing. If people do and like don't tell us, that's like active intention of breaking the rules of the project. And those people, we shouldn't be catering to someone who's like actively and intentionally going to break the rules of the project. I don't feel like that's a good place, a good direction to be going. And so, like, sure, I agree that probably will happen. And like, if someone's intentionally breaking the rules of the project, we don't want them. Like, I don't want someone in the project who's gonna like be sneaky and try to get around what we set up. And so, I don't think we should be like accepting this on that criteria. Like, yes, I agree, it will happen, and I think like those people shouldn't be welcome. Yeah.
I was going to say, when I receive a pull request and it's, let's say, large, in the thousands of lines of code or tens of thousands of lines of code, if it's written by a human, there's this kind of like implicit understanding that for the humans who have gotten that far in the pull request, that they probably understand a little bit about the domain. So there's kind of like an implicit understanding that when you're accepting contributions, you're actually gaining not just the code in that moment and the understanding of the code in that moment, but somebody has invested and has spent the time to grind through that change and like has learned how to think in this domain. And therefore you've got someone in the future when bugs come up or changes need to be made that you can kind of have a little bit more confidence you'll be able to rely on them. But yeah, with these, if somebody sends a PR and it's AI generated and it's from someone that you don't know or recognize, they've got no credibility, I just think, yeah, the bar's got to be a lot higher for them. The idea of allowing collaborators to do this higher frequency, let's say, is kind of a proxy for like that credibility, right? You know that they're going to stick around, they've got a past track record of it, and they're going to be able to, maintain that code basically with or without the AI that they've used.
I think Fedora is next.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I completely agree with most of what has been said before, and I also want to kind of add up on it. So I view LLM-generated code as essentially adversarial to any project, and I think it should be reviewed as such. One of the things that I heard from my conversations with other people is that when they review code submitted by human, it's review. When they review the code submitted by AI, it's an audit. So they have to be like super careful, and basically that's the worst possible things about the code being written. And I think it's hard to disagree with that, but also this can get at the problem of trust that also was brought up, which is, I think, foundational for any open source project. We onboard people, we make a distinction between collaborators, non-collaborators, and the way we review changes is dependent on the trust in the person who wrote them. And I think AI does erode this trust, and even knowing that the person has looked into the code, we still have to assume that it was written adversarially with intent to break something. Like, even though I don't attribute this intent to LLM, obviously, just because we have plausible code that might have deep issues in it, we have to view it as adversarial. So I think our policies should be against that.
Paulo?
Okay, so one thing I'd like to remark. Rafael earlier asked if we receive a AI-generated PR, who's responsible for that? The collaborator. I mean, the same person, the author of the PR. Even though it's AI-generated, we say on the beginning that, for instance, other projects says whoever sends the PR is responsible for that, even if it's AI-generated. Ultimately, is responsible, which basically reinforces the idea is that if we don't trust the person, we reject. Period. That's a fast track saying we reject because we can't tell. Even if we allow, even if basically the idea is that even if we think that you are in good faith, that you follow what the AI has done, and you are sending this PR to improve the project, but we can't really say if you can eventually follow up on that PR, we should probably reject. That's the idea. Another thing is that we're also discussing, shall we allow AI-generated PR? Well, that actually assumes that we are able to distinguish whether something is AI-generated or not, which might not be the case unless we use other tools that are already advertised online that eventually might be using AI to detect if they are AI-generated PR. Do you see the irony in this, right? It makes little to no sense, to be honest. So I would say probably that policy is close to be unenforceable. Now, we might say, okay, we write it down, we can't really enforce it, but if we catch you, we ban you. Yes, but what's the purpose? It's just to prove our point. I guess it's close to be nonsense, to be honest. Shut it down.
Are you?
Go ahead, James.
Okay. On an AI-assisted tool, there are legal protections if you are using AI-assisted tooling as an accessibility tool. There are legal protections. You don't have to disclose it. You don't have to say that you're using it. And that's in most jurisdictions around the world that they have these protections in place. We cannot assume that somebody not disclosing that they used AI was because they are being dishonest, right? In those jurisdictions, we are not allowed to ask, like, are you using an accessibility tool, for this? And these tools, these AI-assisted accessibility tools, are actively being developed, right? My wife is an educational psychologist. There are tools in place for students who are autistic, nonverbal, that are AI-based, based on these LLMs for them communicating and learning to communicate. These things do exist. They are out there. And the legal protections are, we cannot even ask if they are using them. And they do not have to disclose if they are. So this is a reality that we have to contend with. We might say, it's unrealistic. Somebody's using code, doing this. We don't know. We have no idea, right? Is the likelihood that they are just being dishonest? Yes, right? But is there a possibility that is a perfectly legitimate case? Yes.
Actually, I have a follow-up question to that then. So if, for instance, we receive a pull request that seems not terribly trustworthy, and we comment as such and say, we believe that blah, 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 and then the person comes back and claims accessibility, blah, 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 then how would we handle that?
That becomes, that's legally protected. I mean, that, we can't question it. It's just like if somebody says, hey, I'm blind. Mm-hmm. Oh, are you really? That actually ends up being a code of conduct violation, mm-hmm. Right? So that's why we end up having to base our decisions based on, do we trust the individual, mm-hmm. and do we trust the change? Not how the change was created, but do we trust the actual change? And do we trust that that individual has the sufficient knowledge to explain what that change is doing and take responsibility for it? It comes back to that. And if it's something that they just purely AI generated and they can't actually explain it and they don't actually know what the impact is actually going to be, that's a problem we have today without AI. Like if somebody creates some bunch of code and they never tested it and doesn't know if it actually works, we're not going to accept it because we have no way of actually trusting this code or that person.
Okay.
Does AI make it more likely that this code is untrustworthy? Yes, right? And nobody's arguing against that. But the reality is, and this is when I make the comments about the policy being unenforceable, that it's that basis. There in some place, for some uses, there are legal protections they don't have to disclose it.
Also, I was going to say something close to that, but so I will change a bit on what do we mean also by saying usage of AI? Like we want to ban or block the usage of AI. If I'm using ChatGPT to give me an overall view of what I should write in Node.js, but I write it myself, is it fine? Or is it still coming from an AI? So I should declare and say, oh, it's coming from an AI. Basically, are we targeting only code being generated, or are we targeting also something else, like documentation, ID, ways, or what we want around that?
Mateo?
Hello. Hello. Okay. I want to say something that is a little bit different from the topic that has been floated. I think we need, it's time that we write down a policy around large scale PRs, okay, and essentially new subsystems. It's probably being a problem for some time. So we should do that, okay? I think it's about time, independently of how the code is being done, but the fact, especially, you can use AI to generate large amount, for example, of tests of other things that you just need to essentially bring code coverage up when adding a new system, okay? And that can add a relatively high amount of code in very quickly. So there is that question, okay? And I think it's something that we should be taking care of independently of AI being AI or not AI. Like, this is a problem that's being flagged anyway. Also, it's kind of a lack in our current policy to some extent. For example, adding new subsystems, new things, it should be, require QTSC approvals anyway, I think. So it's like adding significant piece of code should pass through the TSC maybe. Okay, I'm flagging this up because it's a way to essentially put some level of gatekeeping, unfortunately. But somebody adds a new subsystem to this to Node and propose it, and it requires little effort to get it through. So anyway, I'm just flagging the problem. I'm listening it up. Okay. So I think who's next? Fedor.
Okay. Yeah. Could we at least get through the other two people? And then I'm thinking, depending on how we want to handle it, I've also collated all of the various proposals that I have found so far. Do we want to open that up for not now, but for people to review and kind of like vote on? Or do we want to table that for later?
We have 1 hour buffer, so we can extend the session to continue the discussion.
Any opinions? Yeah, okay. All right, next up would then be Ulysses.
Hey, yeah, I was about to say, like, if we understand that AI tooling is basically tools, that doesn't move the need of the people to take ownership on the stuff they see. That's super clear. But also, on the other hand, now coding is cheaper than before. So we can enforce more policies and just basically put the collaborators on the project on the focus when the people are contributing. So if the things are, bad, or nobody really want to, keep that system in the future, we can just remove those contributions and be super aggressive on that. And basically that will help us to make the project more sustainable long time, because right now, I mean, people can, if they are using LLMs just to do first contribution stuff like that, we can just send them, recommendation stuff on how to do this kind of thing. So it's easy for us to review and easy for us to, keep the project going on. I mean, in the same way that we ask the people that use LLMs to write code that makes sense to them and they can explain, the same way is for us. Because, I mean, these people can be in the project or they can leave the project, but it's the same as today. I mean, if someone introduce a massive subsystem and they disappear, the project still need to maintain this. And this happened already even before the AI sometimes. I mean, people left the project and nobody knows how to run some pieces, or it's hard to find new collaborators and stuff. So I think it's tooling and doesn't change a lot of things, the same way that for example, I don't use Beam and I don't have to say that on every commit just because nobody cares about what tool I use to deliver my stuff, right? So I think it's pretty similar. I think it's a lot about being more hard on quality gates and basically try to make our life easier as collaborators and to keep, just purging and just making super clear what should be a part of the project and what not, just more aggressive on curation. And also that the people that review PRs now should be a little bit more responsible on if something happened with these chains, I'm here also to solve this because maybe the author is not, which actually happened also before the AI. So yeah, I know it's a lot of changes in the ecosystem, but for us, in open source project, it's not that much. Just easier for people to make changes on the code, actually, if we drive in the good direction, so we can be more aggressive on this.
Fedor?
Yes. So I wanted to kind of bring maybe a more generalistic point that I think relates to us and discussion that we had and what James said about assistance. I think there's a game that LLM companies play that we should be aware of and we should be mindful of. So, and the game is of human language, frankly. So large language models playing with human language. Yeah, I know it's kind of humorous, but at the same time, it's concerning because they call things in interesting way, which makes it hard to reason about them. They call AI assistants like the process which could be anywhere from asking, so as someone said before, like asking, what should I work next on like Node.js? Like should be that feature or that feature? How should I approach it? Or like making LLM generate whole PR by itself. So like calling this LLM assistance essentially blurs the line, and this is very intentional. And similarly, I think LLM companies using assistance as a word also to blur the line of accessibility, and because assistive tools are indeed protected, and we have to be mindful of that. I'm not saying I have an answer. I'm not saying that I'm like passing in any judgment or anything right now, but I'm kind of want to be really mindful about it because we all see that LM companies push AI to be used everywhere, like across the industry. They want it to be used as coordinate system. They want to be used as accessibility tool and everything. It doesn't mean that all of these use cases are they what's the right word? They want this to look blurry. They want this to look indistinguishable from each other. But I feel like we should be aware of them doing it intentionally. And like another thing that I wanted to say is that what I'm concerned about is LLM generated code. So I'm not that much concerned about people asking LLM for analysis of the code and just making their conclusions out of that, or asking LLM what to work on next. I think this, in my mind, probably not things that I would use, but I would not be against someone doing that. So.
I think we can all agree that capitalists can be assholes about this stuff, right? This technology is, every technology is going to, somebody's going to find a way to exploit it in less than ethical ways. And we absolutely need to be mindful about that. I think so far, I mean, somebody might disagree based on a sentiment that I'm hearing here. Nobody in this room is saying we should use AI tools. Nobody's saying that we should encourage their use. Some of us are using it because, only largely because our employers are saying, hey, go use this. So I think we need to be clear about, the policy. We are not going to, stop people from using this. Like we can say a policy, like we're going to ban it, but people are still going to do it. Just like capitalists can be assholes, so people can be like, dishonest. It's something that's going to happen. And then there's protected categories. There's all these things. I think, making the language, structuring the language here, saying we're not encouraging this, but if you're going to use it, this is the policy, this is the flow, and also structuring it, recognizing that all the same problems exist without AI. People can throw, it's at a different scale, right? But people can throw, crap at us. They have before, before all these things happened. We had massive PRs that were just crap. It was way less scale. It was way less often. But the problem with large PRs, the problem with people opening PRs and disappearing, these have always existed, right? And we just need to make sure our policies account for it. Now, do our policies need to get more aggressive, right? Because this is happening at a much higher rate? Yes, I agree with that.
I think in terms of some of those things, we would potentially need more than just policy. Because if we say like, don't do this, but then we're still inundated by stuff, we're still inundated with stuff. Alex?
Yeah, I was just going to challenge a bit, maybe the argument about the scale being different. I think, before generative AI, it's very difficult for someone to produce a 10,000 line PR and not really understand what they were doing. It's almost like a proof of work type thing. Like you're kind of, to get there, you have, what's going on? So sort of bet.
Who's that? Yeah.
So like, it's a unique, it feels like a unique problem to me in that like what are we trying to improve here? We're trying to improve the outcome on how much time are people spending, reviewing, getting PRs, out of the door on both ends of the relationship. When you've got a list of PRs to review, how do you decide which ones you're going to spend the time on today and actually prioritize them? And if you know that some of them have very strong signals that they're not, healthy enough for long-term integration into the code base, then you're going to implicitly, whether you've got any guidance or otherwise, deprioritize that. And I think, we just need to be trying to think about what's the outcome we're trying to improve here. Like treat it like a optimization exercise, right? Profile first.
There is no one else in the queue. I assume, Alex, you're not re-entering. Okay. All right. So looking, oh yes.
So enforce, can we hear it? Hello?
No, it's off.
Okay, there we go. So enforcement comes up a lot in this discussion. I know Tierney had some stuff to say about it as well, with respect to like how it relates to other policies we have and stuff like that. I think we really need to consider, we have the DCO, we have various other policies that are not totally enforceable in the same way that any sort of policy around AI usage or whatever would be unenforceable, right? It's the same thing. We do this all the time. I don't think there's anything new in having a policy that is not enforceable in its totality, right? Because we have several policies, not just the DCO, there's other policies like moderation policies and stuff, COC policies and stuff that are not entirely enforceable. We can't track every single instance of a policy violation, right? Because of that, I'm wondering where this focus on enforceability comes from.
I'll answer that directly because I'm the one that's raised a lot of these. There's two parts of it. There's unenforceable because people are going to lie, in which case we can deal with it in other places. And we have that same problem with everything else. People can lie about BCO, everything else. That doesn't change, right? They'll lie about something else, right? And then there's the unenforceability in can you actually detect the violation, right? Which is, again, same class, right? But then the third one is it's unenforceable because it is a because there are protected uses. And you can't, and because of the accessibility, stuff like that. So with like DCO, there's no legal protection saying you can't ask somebody if they have the right to submit this code, right? So it puts it into a different class of unenforceable than what we've dealt with before. So in that sense, you're absolutely right. It's just like the other problems we've existed. In other parts, this is a brand new problem.
To talk to that point, like if the accessibility issue, like I have spent a little bit of time in accessibility land with that stuff, and my understanding is like the tools, like generating a 10,000 line of code PR with Claude isn't necessarily an accessibility tool. And I think, and there's like lines there, right? There's like certain ways that, it is accessible. And I think like having a carve out in a ban for that of like, if you're using this as an assistive technology, I know there's a couple comments in here about language translation. And like, I even think that is a questionable assistive technology, or like, it's not an accessibility tool in that way. Or at least that's my opinion. But I think like having that carve out of like, look, we're banning this. If you're using it as an accessibility tool, cool. But otherwise, we're not fine with that. Like, I think carving out the things that are like, we're not okay with is a totally reasonable approach.
Yeah, and I would make the point that I don't think anyone is making the argument that we should encourage or say you should use this, right? It is purely about if somebody does, what is our response, right? How do we deal with it? And I think recognizing that people are going to do it anyway for whatever reason they have to do it means our policy should be geared more towards how do we deal with it. Just coming up and saying thou shalt not do is not useful because people will do anyway. You can say that there's an argument there that we're sending a message, but I don't care about sending messages. I'm over trying to tell people what to do or what not to do, especially these days. Let's just set an example based on what we ourselves do, and then go from there. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, makes sense.
Fedor.
Yeah, I want to address several points here. So first of all, I encourage everyone to read current OpenJS Foundation policy on AI and to tell me that it doesn't encourage use of AI because it starts with saying that AI, I don't remember exact words, but like we recognize the value of AI and things like that. So it just goes on like that and then proposes concrete steps. So by default, Node.js is under umbrella of an OpenJS project. And unless we provide an explicit policy, we actually go with the policy of OpenJS. So we do encourage AI use. It's there. It's like maybe it doesn't say explicitly we encourage AI use, but it talks about AI in very positive terms in the preface for the actual rules. Now, I think, James, you kind of floated that you don't care about sending a message, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that, or maybe I'm too old school on this, but I think open source is all about sending the message. Like we started doing this precisely because we wanted to send a message, because we wanted to say that you don't have to write software that doesn't have the source. You don't have to write software that other people can't use. This is why Node.js is MIT license and not GPL, for example. Like it doesn't prohibit you to use it in a paid project or incorporating parts of Node.js core in your project. You just have to provide attribution. And I think this is really a powerful message. And for me personally, as a contributor, just because of this message, I decided to actually work on this thing and to actually write the code. So if we say we don't care about the message and we yeah, like, we don't want to say things that we cannot enforce. I think maybe not in the spirit of what we actually were doing all this time. Yeah.
That's fair. And to a certain extent, I have to say that just because of many things in current culture, I'm quite jaded on things. But people have, even with open source, why people do open source. It's personal to each individual person, right? Like each individual has their own reason for doing it. Some people, hey, I want to send a message because I really believe in free software. Other people is, people pay me to work on this project, so I'm just going to work on this project. I don't care if it's open source or not. That's just what I do. There is a huge spectrum of why we do things that we do and everything else. And yes, to a degree, the project, Node, when we adopted the code of conduct, right? We were sending like, this is, yes, we're going to stand up for this, but it also solves very practical problems in the project. So, I think there's a balance between, saying something just to send a message and saying something because it actually solves a demonstrable problem in our project. And if a message gets sent while we're doing that, okay. There's differences of opinion, and I don't expect all of us to agree on those. That's why we're having this conversation. I'm not expecting everyone to agree with me on this at all. I'm not trying to convince anybody. So it's just it's a balance. We have to figure out where we land on this. If we say a policy, here's what we're going to do if you use AI, but we really prefer you not to use it. Okay, fine, whatever. As long as we reach a consensus on that's the message, that's what we want to do. I hope that makes sense.
Sorry, I think Matteo, you.
All right, go ahead. I can.
Okay.
I have another topic, so
Sure.
Robin has the mic as well.
Right.
Okay. So just to clarify what you just said, that's a little bit different from any of the things that's been suggested so far, right? Because there's been a suggestion of clarifying AI policy, the stuff about the existing moderation policy and so on, just sort of solidifying what we already have. There's also been, of course, discussion of banning, but I think what you brought up is a little bit different, right? Because it may not even be one that you'd necessarily agree with or not. It doesn't matter. The point is you brought up a different one, and that is a suggestion of not using AI or a discouragement, right? And
That's
like
a possibility, yeah.
that. So I think it's just important to call it out that is on the spectrum of things that are a potential outcome. Yeah. Okay.
I'll go. I do have 3 board members in the room who are in the room and voted on the policy. We did add an endorsement about the value. Again, it was 100% unanimous. I think they called Matteo's PR a trailblazing. So there was an endorsement of the value of AI in the room.
And I would say to that, Node is different than the foundation.
Agreed.
The foundation can say there's value in it, go do it. Have I found value in AI? Yeah, great. In my own development, yes, which is saying something because this time last year I will never use this damn tool ever.
The kernel does not, I think, have that line. So you can just be neutral.
Yeah. So we can say, and if the outcome of this conversation, collectively, if we come up and say, we really don't want to discourage, we don't really want to encourage people to do this. In fact, we want to say there are fundamental ethical problems with using this technology, right? That you really should stop and think about whether you really want to use this or not. Right. And we want to put that down on paper and say, actually draw that out and say, but if you do, here are the guidelines that fall from this. I'd be 100% on board with that. Right. The thing that I have an issue with is the hard ban. You won't do this, because that's when it becomes, we're not actually fixing our policy. We're just saying, don't do it. Right. We have to pair sending the message with fixing the actual problems in the project, right? And we have to move forward on both of those fronts.
There was a question floated. I don't have that stat. Where many 10,000 lines of code PR being sent by non-org members? Because Tierney, you were mentioning we received 10,000 lines of code PR written by AI, and I personally haven't seen them.
I was just referencing what was being referenced earlier.
Okay, sorry, I might have missed the comment, but the question is, I've not seen. I've seen a lot of small slop, okay, but not a lot of big chunk. Okay, the big chunk, the big chunky PRs have been done by people in this room or that are part of the collaborators. Okay, mostly because, like, personally, the reason why that PR existed was this is going to be a lot of code, and nobody has done that before because it's going to be a lot of code, and I don't have the money to pay for somebody to do it. So let's get the code written. Okay, so it's 164 same pattern repeated over and over again. Like, this is like, it's not good. We'll talk about that tomorrow anyway. But that's the TLDR of like, I wanted, like, there's not like I think there's a lot of the problems that we are discussing is related to big PRs. Okay, and I think big PRs needs to given that are now way more possible, we should try to find a way to manage them better. Okay, than how we have been done before. Okay. And that is a generic point for the TSC for the discussion. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm done.
So, if I can go, my 2 cents on the topic are that as of today, and I think also for how AI is, how AI works, there will never be a way to deterministically determine if something has been, if a PR has been AI written or not. So there is no tool at all. And again, probably there will not be any tool in the future that will help to detect if it's AI code or not with 100% of possibility to detect it. So I think either you block every PR from, for instance, new people or people you don't trust, or there is no easy way to detect if a PR is really and fully hybrid or not. So I think the main important thing that probably we should do is to just provide clear guidelines and guardrails on how to avoid, for instance, huge PRs or very bad quality code and stuff like that. Because again, otherwise you need to stop writing code from and opening PRs from every new contributor or person, because you cannot say, okay, this is AI written or not.
Just to call out, we are approaching 5:30, which puts us at like half an hour over. Do we think we can wrap up in the next few minutes?
I can drop.
No, we can't.
We can go on to tomorrow.
Yeah,
They can lock us in until.
Yeah.
I can drop from the queue.
Okay. Sorry, what?
I can drop from the queue.
Oh, okay. Leave James and
yeah.
Okay.
Coming on the complexity of some of these changes, we have to address the reality. We have a policy that changes that come in have to be documented, have to be tested. The streams PR, the iterable streams PR, that was a 20,000 line PR, right? 9,000 of it was the actual implementation, right? The rest was tests and documentation and benchmark. This kind of goes back to Mateo's point. It's like we have to have a better policy for how we approach these new subsystem PRs. I'm finishing quick up. This thing's going to be freaking massive, right? Like there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of tests that are necessary for this incredibly complex subsystem. that comes in. The tests alone are going to blow away the actual amount of implementation code. I have no idea how that's actually going to be reviewed, or how it's going to be reviewable, right? You know, I'm writing them all. I'll figure out how to open the PR later. I'm getting it just written, and I'll figure out what the process is going to be. What it's likely going to be is I'm going to need to get on the phone with people and sit down and walk them through the implementation and figure out how we're going to do this in order to be able to get this thing in any kind of reasonable fashion. But that's just the reality of introducing a new subsystem in Node. It has to be big because there has to be tests, there has to be documentation, there has to be these things. And if you look at the size of FS, if you look at the size of these existing subsystems already, they're massive too. The difference is those came in over several years, right? And they were done incrementally and built up incrementally. We want to take 10 years to bring Quick in? Probably not. Well, hell, it's already been 10 years. My first PR that introduced the very first version of Quick went unreviewed. I don't even think anybody read it, like opened it, for a year. And that was way before any of these tools were accessible. So we've had this problem for new subsystems for a long time, right? And so this is something we need to work through. Aside from AI, put that aside, we need a policy for large contributions and a process for this to make it much more effective.
I have a comment on that. Tests are the proof of this thing does what it says that it does. So I'm wondering if whatever policy we have should reflect that. So if the tests are lying, I think we generally rely on the tests to say, like, this is good to go. So if the thing that is telling us this is good to go is lying, then we have a huge problem.
100%. Like, you know, I've been fighting, like, you know, having AI just to see how well it would do. Having it generate some of the tests for the Quick stuff. And I've had to rewrite all the tests for the Quick stuff. And that's what I've been dealing with because it just gets it wrong. So it's quality, you know, is there. You cannot just let this thing go off and do its thing. We have to have it there. But just the fact that we can't introduce a new subsystem, right? Like the VFS implementation. Have you counted, like, how much is actual implementation versus how much is tests?
Is it 52% is tests?
Yep. And how much is docs?
Maybe I would need to look at the stat, but 2%? No,
it's more than that. I looked at it. It was like 12% or something like that when I did it.
Majority of this is just that.
So it's like we you know, this is the reality, is that some of these PRs have to be big, right? Regardless of how they're written. So it's just, you know, we have to separate these questions. Like AI is one conversation, massive PR is a different conversation. We have to separate them. We have to have a different process here. So, you know, I want to make sure that we don't conflate these things too much.
Okay, so I see we have Ruben left. I think, can we cut off the queue there and then cover a wrap up?
Sure.
Cool. No objections, go.
So I totally agree with what James just said about the separation for AI generated in general and big PRs. I have just recently written only one. Yes, I was blinking. All right. Test again. All right. So, like, I totally agree with James about big PRs being a separate problem than in AI in general. Like, we need to tackle them individually. And I have just written a huge PR, manually mostly. And it took a colleague who's in this room many hours to go through it in a call where we just sat down and I explained everything that this PR did. And he understood it as such. And then we did land a huge PR because it made sense to be as one big thing. This is a rare exception, and I believe we should normally try to prevent that by all means. We can split this up even in the process-wise for landing a new subsystem by saying we only want to introduce tests, for example, where we have an expected value, and then start off with this as a separate thing and build up over time. And don't know if we want to trust our tests. That's another thing, right? So they need to have close review about the outcome. And with all that, we can also discuss if that is really necessary. I mean, who opens a PR like that? It's normally not someone just coming from the wild opening that. If it's not AI generated one that we want to close away right away anyway. So there is probably a strong reason for doing that. And if that is the case, well, then let us come together and decide what group is going to actively review that in a synchronous call, where we really sit down and decide which slice of this do we want to tackle at the moment. Do we tackle the tests? All right, we look at them, we land this part of the test already, and then we continue with the next chunk of it. And we want to have a timeline for doing this. And like in a company, you're paid to have things, and then we just set up a call and we tackle this collaboratively so that you don't have to wait 1 year to get the first review of Quick anymore in the future.
Cool. Okay. All right, thank you. So we have quite a lot of upvotes on the issues here. What do we want to do with this? Do we want to continue some other kind? Oh,
you wants to say something?
Okay.
I saw that further mentioned that large PRs should be separated from AI discussion. I have different views. I think, in particular, for code, like large chunk of code that's generated by AI. I don't know if people have read a article about AI make mistakes, but they make mistakes very differently from human beings. Take the virtual file system pull request, for example. During the review process, there was like a few mistakes that I don't think Matteo himself would commit, like removing tests just to make it pass. That's definitely not something Matteo would do. And I was like very surprised. So I think it does when it's mostly generated by the AI, or like there's a huge amount of code generated by the AI, it does make a difference, because when they make mistakes, it's very different.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so we have a whole bunch of really good stuff here, I think. We have the upvotes. Is there anything in particular that we want to do next? I believe TSC has a discussion on this. Are we gonna just like, here you go? Or do we need to have do we need to have more on this? What do we want to see happen? Thoughts, opinions, fears? Good.
Is there a mic?
Yeah.
Okay. So from a pure process standpoint, okay, we have two blocks on the two PRs that are being blocked, essentially. So as I said multiple times, the TSC need to express itself and decide if we want to leave those blocks, okay, in under what basis, okay, and explain that reason. That can be done in with a vote. That can be done by some during a TSC meeting. There's a few ways in which the TSC can express that opinion, but that is part of the discussion. However, having said that, given what we've done in this conversation, I think a few things can be added to that document so that it conveys some of the topics we have talked about, okay, so that it can be essentially landed in a way that is correct for everybody, or as close to good for the group. Okay, I don't like. and like so far, we have a PR saying that allows these kind of things. Okay, if there is an alternative version that can be sent to deny that, block ban that, and so on and so forth. That, of course, that was closed. But I don't know if Brian wants to reopen or revive the topic based on the discussion. I like this is up to Brian and other people in the room, essentially. These is the two steps that are essentially on the table. Sorry to bring you up. You opened the PR. So.
That's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to clarify that the primary reason for closing the PR was I didn't think that it would be something I would be comfortable with landing as it was.
Okay.
Even regardless of how opinions about various policies or whatnot, the PR itself was not self-consistent enough to land.
Perfect. Okay. So anyway, this is the situation. There are a few hands up. I don't know if you, James, do you want to talk?
I can. Yeah.
Okay. So if James, you want to talk, you can talk.
In terms of the PR that is open, right? What I would ask for the folks that want to have language that says that actively discourages use of AI, right? As we've discussed, a concrete proposal of what that language should be, that keeps that takes into the consideration of what has been discussed, right? So some concrete proposals there. What I would prefer not to see is arguing about that on the PR, right? Just like take some time, think about what it is, make a proposal of it. But I think just in terms of moderating that conversation, it's going to go off the rails really quickly. And what I was seeing, and I don't know if this was just randos from the internet seeing the conversation and coming into it, right? It's not helpful to get people on both sides of the argument that aren't part of the project randomly coming into those threads and dropping in comments. We've had that problem before with controversial subjects. It's never been played out well, right? And this is partly why, I know there's been a conversation, let's have a larger contributor vote around this. I think we need to get our consensus as a group before we bring open that conversation up wider. So it's like, yes, I want to see more proposals for language, but what I don't want to see is a pile-on effect from randos from the internet coming into the conversation and then the conversation completely derailing and then everybody getting pissed off.
So a simple thing I think we can all agree on is maybe just don't post about this on any social media or link aggregators or anything of that sort.
It's already there. This conversation has been live posted on.
Why'd you do that, James?
Some folks have been doing it, but yeah.
Perhaps something we should encourage avoiding, though, just because of that.
Yeah. So the AI policy request, is that ready to land there?
So, as James asked, there is a few things. I think there are a few comments still open in on the discussion. There are a couple of discussion points I think related to comments and issues, things like that. Plus, there is I think there is some statement that we could make to convey some of the unethicalness of all of this, okay? And realizing that it's not enforceable, a ban or something, I don't know. But that statement needs to come from the people that are essentially want that statement in to some extent, okay? And then we can discuss if that would look like, okay? That would be what James has asked, okay? If I would make a recommendation is write something, let's add something that says, if you are a new contributor, learn the code base, okay? if you just shoot it at AI without looking at it, is not helpful. So don't bother. Okay, like I'm not sure if I conveyed it. Like we need a better way to say this, but more or less I can read the room, and we can all agree on that topic. Okay, if you know what you're doing, it's probably okay. But if you don't, probably don't. If as a junior, don't use the thing. Maybe you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, I think before we land any particular AI policy, we need to deal with the large PRs. Those sorts of things. Have that actually landed first, so we can use that to shut down any red herring discussions in the AI policy conversations, and just focus down on what actually are the reasons to allow or disallow this, not what are all these other not actually related things.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. There is a question from Fedor. Raise hand from Fedor.
Yeah, I agree that these are separate questions, and I feel strongly about this as well. But I cannot also deny that if not for this large PR, which might have made the question really serious about the AI policy, we probably wouldn't have had this discussion at all. So I think it's in a way we have to separate this discussion, and I think the controversy around the PR has raised two separate questions. But at the same time, if not for that PR, I don't think we would have been having this discussion, at least not to this extent that we had it today. So that's also important. So just kind of need to clarify that.
I think we're good then.
I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Fedor. Bye. Bye, Ulysses. I don't know who else is connected, but bye, folks. Brian. I don't know who else is connected, but bye-bye. There's 21 people. Whatever. Fantastic.